The sandstone tower in the sky, the goldy fish, the clocks that lie, the bells that peal with tuneful song, the steps we climbed, one short, one long. Cork in 1920 was an extremely volatile place. If you look at some of the old photographs from that time, you will see a lot of Union Jacks hanging from the buildings around the city centre. But don't let that fool you. Cork's merchant princes at that time would have been mainly loyalists, but on the ground it was a Republican hotbed. The Cork Corporation was dominated by a majority of Republican councillors, and our own Irish culture was becoming more and more popular with the citizens. Housing conditions at that time were extremely poor, with large families sharing tiny rooms in tenement buildings with little sanitation. Almost 9,000 or 11% of the population of the city inhabited these ill-suited dwellings. People started to resent the presence of the British rulers because of the brutality inflicted upon them. More and more young men and women were joining the Republican movement and taking up arms against the British.
Come all ye lads of Verdens Isle, your country needs you list a while. Time for you to put aside your worries and your fears. The time has come to shed our chains, cast out John Bull, take the reins. We'll fight for Ireland's freedom with the Irish volunteers. Fight for Ireland, take your siren, stand up to your foe. Proud and mighty, down with Blighty, let the tyrants know. The time has come to take our stand, no more a colony or land. Side by side we'll drive John Bull into the Irish Sea. For too long now our people crave to rid us of the Saxon knave. Self-determination after 700 years. So hurry boys and get in line, our new republics of its time. We claim our liberation with the Irish volunteers. Fight for Ireland, take our siren, stand up to our foe. Proud and mighty, down with Blighty, let the tyrants know. The time has come to take our stand, no more a colony or land. Side by side we'll drive John Bull into the Irish Sea. Side by side we'll drive John Bull into the Irish Sea.
May the Lord above send down a dove with wings as sharp as razors to slash the throats of the blackened hands that shot our brave Sinn Féiners. My own mother was a member of Cumann na mBan, and she told me many stories of how the women would carry weapons for the volunteers, provide safe houses, first aid and so forth, before or after attacks on the enemy. In those days, women were less likely to be searched, so concealing weapons on their person was quite common for them.
Oh, my name is Peg Duggan, and this is my story. I was born near Cork City, a townland just beyond. My sisters and I, Sarah, Bridget and Annie, we were early involved with Cumann na mBan. From the time when they buried O'Donovan Rossa, our allegiance we swore to our own native land. The men folk did fight against abject oppression. The women supported at every command. We concealed many weapons, sometimes on our persons. We offered good shelter to men on the run. We visited prisons, gave comfort and counsel to families, provided good clothing homespun. And often we nursed men, the wounded, the dying, injuries most appalling as ever were seen. We prayed or we cursed as occasions required, saw young men blown apart by infernal machines. Or gahir rev loiduch ta dorte is krate, na dinig fullingt sig fullingt go ger. Ni moor doing a chasse of a gunne and tiernish, is tyrannig a rogert go jo as our dear. Gwimir dan lan of I ger a sirshe, Siasuf godangen le brodes le nart. Banach de le moor lechre a shairi na heren. Oglik na heren is common na man. Our own rebel city is sullied and tortured. Our people are suffering to such a degree that we feel it's our duty to stand and be counted and banish the tyrants from our country. I pray for the time when our country knows freedom, and on her own feet she stands proudly upon. So God bless the heroes of Ireland's rebellion, the bold IRA and common the man.
Guerrilla warfare was the method used by the volunteers to attack the British forces in Cork City and County. It was highly effective and caused great frustration to the British and inflicted serious damage to them, both physically and mentally. The IRA were having a lot of success in attacks on the British forces, and as a consequence, a curfew was placed in the city. Any citizen found outside after the curfew without permission from the authorities could be shot on sight. In March 1920, the RIC entered the home of Thomas McCurtain, Lord Mayor of Cork and commanding officer of the 1st Cork Battalion, IRA, and shot him dead.
In the small hours of a cold March night, in the village of Blackpool, a burst of gunfire broke the silence. Blood formed in a pool. A man lay dying from his wounds. His wife was knelt in prayer. His little son cried bitter tears. They had killed Cork's own Lord Mayor. The priest was summoned quickly to administer last rites. People began to gather round, all trembling with fright. Hands were clasped with rosary beads, they chanted in despair. Thomas is gone, our favourite son, they've killed our brave Lord Mayor. The piper and the patriot, the rebel soldier brave, brother, father, husband, son, sent to an early grave. He fought for Ireland's freedom when the British ruled with fear. Thomas is gone, our favourite son, they've killed our brave Lord Mayor. The funeral cortege passed along as heavy rain it fell. The hooves of horses drummed a rhythm with the requiem bell. The sad bystanders stood in shock, applauding tearfully, to pay respect to a great man who fought to set them free. It seemed as if 10,000 people stood at the graveside. Too many times in recent years, fine brave young men had died. A comrade used brave Padraig's words to praise our volunteer. The fools, the fools, the fools, the fools, they've killed our brave Lord Mayor. The piper and the patriot, the rebel soldier brave, brother, father, husband, son, sent to an early grave. He fought for Ireland's freedom when the British ruled with fear. Tomas is gone, our favourite son, they've murdered our Lord Mayor.
After the brutal murder of Thomas McCurtain, the IRA reorganised in Cork City and went on to inflict serious damage to the Crown forces in the city and county. To counter this, the British sent in the Black and Tans and the auxiliary forces to Ireland in an effort to bolster the RIC, who were being seriously depleted by mass resignations. Some of these men were officers from the army who had fought in the trenches of World War I. They were extremely brutal in the way they went about their business. The most notorious of all these auxiliaries were K Company, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Latimer.
Lieutenant Colonel Latimer, a servant to the Crown, came to Ireland from his native Coventry. He was stationed in Cork City, such a place of high renown, commanding officer of ADRIC. On the 11th of December, he turned Cork to an ember in response to all attacks on RIC. He was loyal to King George when he put us to the torch, when his auxies went out on the drunken spree. A curse upon the blackguards of Auxie K Company. No bigger band of murderers in Ireland you will find. Bad cess to all Auxie K Company, descendants of Cromwell, may your corpses rot in hell. May the devil call and pay you back in kind. On the night they burned the city down, the whiskey it flowed free as they waited in their barracks, Union Quay. Latimer received his orders all the way from London town. Get revenge for all the fallen RIC. The petrol cans were lined up, incendiary bombs were primed up. Into the city centre they were bound, with grim determination to cause complete devastation when they burned 200 buildings to the ground. A curse upon the blackguards of Auxie K Company. No bigger band of murderers in Ireland you will find. Bad cess to all Auxie K Company, Descendants of Cromwell, may your corpses rot in hell. May the devil call and pay you back in kind. They headed to Dunmanway with intent to burn the town. Reprisal for the Kilmichael victory. They met with Canon Magner and Ty Crowley from the town. They killed them both with vicious cruelty. They caused such an awful melee. They robbed the bank in Dunmanway. Mayhem was the order of the day. They were not punished for their crimes, a sure sign of the times. If right be right, they should have all been put away. A curse upon the blackguards of Auxike Company. No bigger band of murderers in Ireland you will find. Bad cess to all Auxike Company. Descendants of Cromwell, may your corpses rot in hell. May the devil call and pay you back in kind.
In 1920, Cork City had a total of 4 Lord Mayors. 3 of these were Republicans. After the murder of Thomas McCurtain, Terence McSweeney was elected. McSweeney was arrested on trumped-up charges and incarcerated, eventually in Brixton Prison, London. He maintained a hunger strike protest and was followed by 11 more prisoners in Cork Jail. The first hunger striker to die was Michael Fitzgerald from Fermoy, County Cork. The next of these prisoners to die was Joseph Murphy, who died at the age of 24 in Cork Jail. Terence McSweeney died on the 25th of October, and Murphy died on the same night a few short hours later. Joe Murphy's death was overshadowed by the death of the second Lord Mayor in Cork.
On a cold and grey October day in the year 1920, a funeral hearse approached the gates of St. Finbar Cemetery. 1,000 mourners walked behind upon the gravel rough. His parents cried with anguish for the boy from Powlatuff. They came back home from Boston in the year of 95. The Murphys with their children to Cork City did arrive. Joe Murphy soon immersed himself in the culture of his land, hurling, football, road belting were all at his command. Age 19 he enlisted with the Irish Volunteers. Because the land was overrun with tans and fusiliers, he fought with comrade patriots as fearless and as tough. A credit to old Ireland, the boy from Powlatuff. Far in Nor I see the Cork battalion did take on against overwhelming forces, were outnumbered 2 to 1. He fought with guile and bravery, but they could not prevail. Murphy and his comrades were sent to Cork County Jail. For 10 long weeks Joe Murphy did refuse all sustenance. He took his lead from Brixton, where McSweeney took his stance. And during week 11, with a final painful call, had been taken by the boy from Powladuff. The coffin it was lowered down with dignity and care. The firing party's pistol shot 3 volleys in the air. Many young men vowed that day the tyrants to rebuff, in honor and in memory of the boy from Powladuff. In honor and in memory of the boy from Powladuff.
Terence McSweeney was one of Ireland's greatest patriots. Terence was married to Muriel Murphy, who was a member of the Murphy brewing family in Cork. The loss of her husband in such terrible circumstances had a profound effect on her for the remainder of her life.
The day they brought my Terry home, no larks did sing their cheerful tune, no sunlight peeked beneath the clouds, no golden rays the sky festoon. The autumn wind was sharp and cold, the drops of rain in puddles foam, my bitter tears in torrents rolled, the day they brought my Terry home. His tortured body racked with pain, 11 weeks in deep despair, no morsel passed his mouth to chew, and I just sat in silent prayer. His brow I'd wipe and softly kiss, his hair I'd stroke and gently comb. My heart was broken, spirit rent, the day they brought my Terry home. My gallant man was tall and strong, a leader proud, a colleague true, steadfast when the wicked foe their horrid lies did spout and spew. When weeks of hunger laid him low, these words he spoke from Brixton jail. Not those who would inflict great pain, but those who do endure prevail. As I reflect upon his life, my love, my knight in shining armour, and though his time on earth was short, and awful was his slow departure, his faith was strong and never wavered, his path was laid from holy tomb. The clocks all stopped, the seas ran dry, the day they brought my Terry
Right through the summer of 1920, there were many attacks on the British in the city and county. The level of brutality also increased against the civilian population of Cork City and county. On the 28th of November, the IRA, led by Tom Barry, carried out an ambush near Kilmichael against the auxiliaries. 16 British were killed on that day. The same flying column would have another huge victory against the British forces at Crossbarry a few short months later, thereby inflicting the two biggest defeats on the British in the entire War of Independence. The Kilmichael ambush in particular had huge implications for the Republicans in Cork. The RIC, auxiliaries and Black and Tans went on the rampage through the city and county, murdering innocent civilians and looting businesses everywhere they could.
I was born in Killoughlin in County Kerry at the turn of the last century. My family soon brought me to live in West Cork in the village of Rosscarbery. On my 17th year I decided to see what the so-called Great War was about. So I joined with the Tommies and packed up my bags, and to Mesopotamia went out. It was not for the plight of small nations I went, not for strongly disliking the Hun, but to see some new countries and be a grown man, and to learn how to handle a gun. Whilst fighting the Turks at the Battle of Cut, I first heard the news from back home of the brave volunteers who gave up their lives to meet him completely unknown. They said I was ruthless, a savage fiend, a bloodthirsty wild commando. They went down the mire to destroy us, so down after them we did go. When I got back to Cork, I decided to offer the skills I'd acquired to the cause of redeeming my country and to rid her of those undesired. I rose through the ranks very quickly as the enemy fell to my blade. Soon I became the commander of the glorious West Cork Brigade. On the 28th day of November, our column lay quietly in wait, when a convoy transporting the Oxys at Kilmichael would soon meet their fate. My comrades were brave and determined that morning to vanquish our foe, and despite a coward's false surrender, sent those Oxys to Hades below. They said I was ruthless, a savage, a fiend, a bloodthirsty wild commando. They went down the mire to destroy us, so down after them we did go. They went down the mire to destroy us, so down after them we did go.
I stood with my comrades on Skenahan Hill and looked down on the valley below, and I wondered how people might speak of this day 100 long years from now, with their hearts filled with pride for these men by my side, who any moment would give up their lives for the cause they believed in was ever so right. All the brave fighting men of Crossbarry. So name them, acclaim them, honour them all. In history's pages their deeds we recall. To gain Ireland's freedom they answered the call, all the brave fighting men of Crossbarry. We looked to the eastward and up on the hill to see Ford's Ballymurphy on fire. We knew Charlie Hurley was resting up there. We hoped that he might yet survive. When the sad news was told, heads were bowed low. Our brave brigadier had died fighting alone. Ah, but how he'd have loved to stand facing the foe with his brave fighting men of Crossbarry. So name them, acclaim them, honour them all. In history's pages their deeds we recall. To gain Ireland's freedom they answered the call, all the brave fighting men of Crossbarry. Flor Begley, the piper, was in Beasley's yard, struck up when the first shot was fired. His music it carried all over the field, and oh, our lads were inspired. Though vastly outnumbered, at least 10 to 1, we stood side by side, each man with his gun. They had come to surround us, but now they did run, far away from the men of Crossbarry. So name them, acclaim them, honour them all. In history's pages their deeds we recall. To gain Ireland's freedom they answered the call, all the brave fighting men of Crossbarry. On Skenahin Hill we said a quick prayer to those we had lost on the field. For Scotty, Con Daly and Jerry Leary, brave men who never would yield. Then our leader Tom Barry, the bravest of all, we'd follow that man, whatever the call. Sounded the whistle, in line we did fall, marching onward, the men of Crossbarry. So name them, acclaim them, honour them all. In history's pages their deeds we recall. To gain Ireland's freedom they answered the call, all the brave fighting men of Crossbarry. Through Russell Hill, Crow Hill and on to Raheen, Tom Kelleher showed us the way. Already a lion that morn in the fight, he kept all the Essex at bay. We held the high ground, looking down from the ridge, we spotted the enemy north of Toobridge. We fired our guns, and again they did run, far away from the men of Crossbarry. So name them, acclaim them, honour them all. In history's pages their deeds we recall. To gain Ireland's freedom they answered the call, all the brave fighting men of Crossbarry. To gain Ireland's freedom they answered the call, all the brave fighting men of Crossbarry.
On December the 11th, the IRA received intelligence about 2 army trucks about to head down to Dillon's Cross on the north side of the city. They ambushed the trucks and 12 RIC men were seriously wounded and 1 killed. This ambush, a few hundred yards from the Victoria Barracks, seemed to be the last straw for the British in Cork. They proceeded to burn as much as they could of the city. The orgy of violence started in Dillon's Cross area, where many of the houses were burnt down, including the house of Brian Dillon, which stood as a symbol of patriotism to the citizens of Cork. They then advanced towards Cork City and threw incendiary bombs into as many shops and businesses as they could. The main target for destruction was the Cork City Hall. There had been several attempts to set fire to City Hall in previous days. This time they were successful. Along with City Hall, the Carnegie Free Library was also set ablaze. While this was going on, the Cork Fire Brigade, under the command of Alfred Hudson, tried valiantly to quench the fires, but were thwarted by the British forces, who shot at the firemen and in some cases cut their water hoses. Despite this, Alfred Hudson, an Englishman himself, was lauded by all for his valiant efforts and the efforts of the firefighters under his command. It is said, but for the Cork Fire Brigade's intervention, many more buildings would have been lost, and lives would certainly have been lost.
My name is Alfred Hudson. I came from the Sussex Downs. Now at 71 years old, I must save this burning town. 30 years a fireman, now I wear the boss's shoes. Superintendent on the job, act now or the city will lose. Act now or the city will lose. Auxiliaries roam the city streets, violent, angry and mad, burning all the buildings, inflamed with a hatred so bad. After the fight at Dillon's Cross, with houses all aflame, incendiary bombs and bullets fly. Just the innocent take the blame, just the innocent take the blame. From St. Luke's on down to Pana, you can hear the shattering glass, the screaming of the frightened folk as angry auxiliaries pass in their orgy of destruction, looting without care, setting fires swiftly. Smoke and flames rise everywhere, smoke and flames rise everywhere. Engulfing fine old buildings, see the city glow. Unroll the hoses quickly, lads, to let the water flow. Ignore the flying bullets, we have a job to do. Our training must be followed, with our hoses aiming true, with our hoses aiming true. Reject intimidation, it is the only way. On this December night of hate, lovely buildings burn away. With a crack of blazing timber, the burst of bullets sound. To quench the flame is the fireman's game, with destruction all around, with destruction all around. This night consumed with hatred, the firemen bring their care, as bullets fly and hosepipes try, quenching ruin everywhere. Reject intimidation, it is the only way. On this December night of hate, lovely buildings burn away, lovely buildings burn away. My name is Alfred Hudson, I came from the Sussex Downs. Now at 71 years old, I must save this burning town. 30 years a fireman, now I wear the boss's shoes. Superintendent on the job, act now or the city will lose. Act now or the city will lose.
Despite the awful carnage perpetrated by the British that night, there were also moments of humour. One story in particular was relayed by a member of the Cork Fire Brigade, who told a story about a black and tan who approached him while dampening a building in Cook Street. This Tan was drunk and apologised for the conduct of his countrymen. He proceeded to waltz around the street with the fireman.
I'm Sonny Jim from Wolfenstall, one man of 4 degrees. I likes me drink, me snouts, me necks. Now come for a waltz with me. I had to hightail from me native town on account of a baby or 3. I joined with these crazy black and tans to travel the world for me. But I landed in Cork at the height of trouble, with a target pinned on my back. I never fired a shot in anger. Aggression is something I lack. Come on, Mr. Fireman, put out that old have some my whiskey. Watch me get rid of this notchless rifle and come for a waltz with me. I'm Sonny Jim from Wolfenstall, a man of 4 degrees. I likes me drink, me snouts, me necks. Now come for a waltz with me.
It was incredible that on that night nobody lost their lives in the inferno. But in the early hours of the following morning, the RSC, Ogsies, entered the home of the Delaney brothers of Dublin Hill and shot them both. Jeremiah died of his wounds within minutes, and Con died a week later in hospital. Jeremiah and Con Delaney had been members of the 1st Cork Brigade of the IRA, but had taken no part in the ambush at Dillon's Cross.
I'll tell you of 2 patriots when life in Cork was dangerous. Con and Ger Delaney went in answer to the call. They went from playing GAA to fighting with the IRA. It's often said these brothers were the bravest of them all. Their teenage years, these volunteers would sport and play and hunt the hares. They worked the land with vigor, sowed potatoes in the drill. But life was near unbearable beneath the flag of old John Bull. For Con and Ger Delaney from the top of Dublin Hill. Their passion was for hurling, and at football they excelled, and Irish song and music was their thrill. They loved their Irish culture, against Britain they rebelled. Brave Con and Ger Delaney from the top of Dublin Hill. The 12th day of December is a day we should remember, as Cork City was still smouldering as the day began to dawn. The Tans were looking for a kill, made their way to Dublin Hill. For the 2 Delaney's Cork Battalion 1st Brigade. And as the lads were sleeping, the assassins came a-creeping. A hail of bullets rained on them, they never stood a chance. The Tans had orders on that night to apprehend and shoot on sight Con and Ger Delaney from the top of Dublin Hill. Their passion was for hurling, and at football they excelled, and Irish song and music was their thrill. They loved our Irish culture, against Britain they rebelled. Brave Con and Ger Delaney from the top of Dublin Hill. They lay dying on the floor, their bodies stained in blood and gore. Sultans prevented the last rites there to be read. Their sisters cried a flood of tears to see these brave young volunteers depart their earthly bodies without blessings for the dead. Merciful God in paradise, reward them for their sacrifice. Forever may they sit beside you, happy and fulfilled. And as for those who murdered them, they're mouldering now in Satan's den for killing Con and Ger Delaney from the top of Dublin Hill. Their passion was for hurling, and at football they excelled, and Irish song and music was their thrill. They loved their Irish culture, against Britain they rebelled. Brave Con and Ger Delaney from the top of Dublin Hill.
Following the burning of Cork, K Company was sent to Dunmanway, where they continued to terrorise innocent civilians. There are reports of terrible savagery, including the murder of a parish priest, Canon Magna, and a local man, Ty Crowley. They were later disbanded by the British authorities, but none were ever charged with war crimes. Lloyd George, the British Prime Minister, was keen to end the War of Independence, so he offered negotiations towards a peace settlement, which led to the Irish Civil War. Sin Scéile, that's another story. 100 years have passed, and the beautiful city we see today is a far cry from the war-torn, ravaged bomb site of the past. Cork is a jewel among its peers in Europe, and it is right and fitting to remember the brave people who suffered terribly all those years ago. I leave you now with a rendition of the song that started proceedings.
I have worked in places far from home, from Perth to Brisbane I did roam. Pick fruit near Melbourne by the ton, was burned in Darwin's scorching sun. But often when I was alone, my mind turned back to thoughts of home. And the rebel city so petite, a Shandon steeple on Church Street, the sandstone tower in the sky, the goalie fish, the clocks that lie, the bells that peal with tuneful song, steps we climb, one short, one long. The view on high would melt your heart, the southern jewel of much renown. It always hurts when we're apart, the blood and bandage rebel town. And when my time on earth is done, when my life's journey has been run, just take me home to that old town. In Shandon churchyard lay me down. The sandstone tower in the sky, the goldie fish, the clocks that lie, the bells that peal with tuneful song, steps we climb, one short, one long. If there should be an afterlife, and if in heaven I'm allowed, I will go to Peter and request exclusion from the harp and cloud. For there's no place else I'd want to be than that little city by the Lee. So let my spirit weave its spells among the songs of Shandon bells. The sandstone tower in the sky, the goldy fish, the clocks that lie, the bells that peal with tuneful song, steps we climbed, one short, one long. The sandstone tower in the sky, the goldy fish, the clocks that lie, the bells that peal with tuneful song, steps we climbed, one short, one long. The bells that peal with tuneful song, that wondrous place where I come from.